Steven Seagal has always been a bit of an enigma to me. A bloated, narcissistic charisma vacuum with no particular acting ability or personality, who basically forged an entire career out of playing invincible martial arts experts with questionable fashion choices designed mostly to hide his expanding waistline, and a selection of increasingly ridiculous names like Mason Storm, Gino Felino, and Forrest Taft. Pretty much every character he's ever played adheres perfectly to what I like to call the Seagal formula. Reserved, soft-spoken, but deceptively menacing men with some kind of murky CIA or Special Forces background who use their particular set of skills to take down drug lords, corrupt businessmen, terrorists, or organised crime. None of them have got any particular character arc, personality, flaws, or weaknesses. They win every fight, control every situation, dominate every encounter, and generally succeed at everything with zero effort or difficulty. It's a bit like Rey from Star Wars, if Rey was an overweight middle-aged man in a dodgy wig, pretending that he can still do martial arts. Nowadays he's mostly known for pumping out low-budget, low-effort, direct-to-video garbage for his dwindling fan base, and for being weirdly popular in Russia for some reason. But skip back 30 years or so, and Steven Seagal was an up-and-coming action star with a string of small but increasingly successful hits under his belts. And by the early 90s, it was time for him to put on his big boy pants and join the big leagues. And the chosen launchpad for this push for A-list stardom was Under Siege, a story about a soft-spoken but deceptively menacing former Special Forces soldier who has to use his particular set of skills to take down a group of terrorists. So yeah, it definitely plays into the Seagal formula, but unlike most of his other movies, Under Siege is actually really fucking good. Mostly because it's well written, competently directed, and has a good supporting cast to keep things moving. The film's based aboard the USS Missouri, a World War II battleship making its final cruise before heading home for decommissioning. And because it's also the captain's birthday, the XO arranges to have entertainment and catering flown in specially for the occasion. What a nice chap. Unfortunately, there's more in store for the crew than soggy canapes and watered down Prosecco. The caterers turn out to be a group of hardcore mercenaries led by former CIA operative William Stranix. Before you know it, they've taken the crew hostage and hijacked the ship. Stranix's devious plan is to offload the ship's nuclear missiles onto a North Korean submarine so that he can sell them later on the black market. Unfortunately, the one thing he didn't count on was Casey Ryback, a former SEAL team member now serving as the ship's cook, who gets locked in a freezer and forgotten about shortly before the takeover. From then on, Ryback wages a one-man war against Stranix and his men, using everything from knives to guns to fucking battleship cannons. And with his options running out, Stranix decides to launch his missiles against Hawaii as one last fuck you to his enemies. But will he have his revenge, or will Ryback show up at the last minute to stop him in a climactic hand-to-hand battle? I think you know the answer. Under Siege often gets thought of as Die Hard on a boat, and let's be honest, it's not hard to see the connections. Both movies feature a lone man taking on a superior force in a confined location with no possibility of outside help. Both have plenty of action, gunfights and explosions, and both culminate in a final confrontation between the hero and the villain. So basically what I'm saying here is that Under Siege isn't exactly breaking new ground in the action genre. But to be honest, I don't give a shit because I think it works perfectly fine as a setup for what is actually a pretty cool action thriller. The location of a battleship is a neat concept for a film like this, providing plenty of opportunities for great little set pieces in unusual locations. This isn't some corporate high-rise filled with bland offices and half-finished machine spaces. It's a fucking battleship filled with narrow claustrophobic passageways, sleek command centers and towering superstructures. And for once, these aren't cheap, unconvincing sets either. The production was able to film on actual decommissioned warships, and I don't know man, there's just something fundamentally awesome about those big Iowa-class battleships. The action sequences and fight scenes are all decently put together and well directed, and even Seagal manages to pull his weight. Mostly. Under Siege was made when he was still young and fit enough to do actual physical stunts and fight choreography, and even if it all looks a bit easy for him at times, at least he's actually doing some cool stuff. The supporting cast helps immensely to liven things up. I mean, Gary Busey is the kind of guy who always brings a certain, energy to his performances.
Do I look like I need a psychological evaluation?
Not at all.
Tommy Lee Jones is great fun as Stranix. I guess he must have decided to compensate for Seagal's lack of emotion by just going all in. I mean, the man really swings for the fences, I'll say that much. Oh, and hey look, it's Chief O'Brien from Star Trek. And as for Erica Eleniak, well, I can think of a couple of reasons why she was cast. Under Siege really served as the apex of Seagal's career, his first and only taste of A-list stardom, and his follow-up film On Deadly Ground proved to be a bit of an expensive vanity project that failed to cement his success. From then on, it was basically a downward spiral into cheap B-movie obscurity. But hey, none of that should detract from what is a genuinely fun action movie from a bygone era, with a great supporting cast and some nice inventive set pieces. It's not going to change your world, but hey, maybe you don't need it to. If you're looking for a simple, undemanding film with clear-cut heroes and villains that doesn't really aspire to be anything more than it is, then well, Under Siege could fit the bill just right. Just remember to stay away from the shitty sequel. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.